Today is April 7th and it is 12:06 p.m. and we're here at my apartment. My name is Brenann Hamilton with the UNI Museum and I'll be interviewing Andrew Deets. Thank you so much, Andrew, for interviewing with us. Please state your name, your role as either a student or teacher at the school you attended, and then what years you attended school.
Okay, my name is Andrew Deets. I am a junior student here at the University of Northern Iowa. I started kindergarten in 2005 and graduated high school in 2018.
Okay, thank you. So when were you born?
I was born January 17th, 2000.
Okay, and where did you grow up?
I grew up in Mason City, Iowa.
So what is your family like?
My family is it's a very athletic family.
Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have a younger sister and a younger brother.
What are their names?
My sister's name is Anna and my younger brother's name is Alex.
How far away did you live from your school?
So for elementary school, my house was basically a block away. For Lincoln, that was, I don't really know how far away that was, like 3 miles maybe. And then in 7th grade, I went to Madison, which 5 or 7 minutes away. And then for the middle school and the high school, they were linked together and my house is only 2 minutes away from them.
So what were some of your interests as a child?
Well, in elementary school, I was really into like Pokemon and some maybe Star Wars. I also was involved in sports since my family, again, was very athletic, so. And I had a lot of athletic friends. Oh, and I loved reading too, Harry Potter, of course. Well, I didn't dislike school. It can be not so fun sometimes, but I mean, it gives you something to do, and I think it's pretty necessary.
So what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
Okay, my first dream was to become a firefighter, and I realized how unrealistic that was when I entered elementary. I don't even know when I changed it. Then eventually I said, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer. And then I changed that to a pediatrician. In high school, I eventually decided I wanted to be a history teacher, and that's why I chose University of Northern Iowa.
So did you have any childhood aspirations or goals?
I guess never get a detention.
Okay.
I was always a good student. Never got in any trouble. Always kept my grades above C's. And I mean, I guess I had some aspirations, like to play soccer when I'm older.
Okay.
Oh, and running, of course. I've been long distance running since I was 10. So.
What role did school play in your upbringing?
Well, school is basically where I became friends with all of my current friends, besides the ones I had from early childhood. And schools help you develop just basic social skills and necessary skills you need over time that parents really can't teach you because they don't have time. That's what teachers are there for.
Was school an option or requirement for you?
If it was an option, I would choose it, but it was a requirement.
What is your earliest memory of school?
My earliest memory in preschool was I went to Discovery Time, which my Nana was a teacher at, and every time before Christmas we had making gingerbread houses with your family.
What's your Nana's name?
Mary Ortel.
Okay, and is she your dad's mom or your mom's mom?
She's my mom's mom.
So what did a typical morning before school look like?
And in elementary school, the morning consisted of, waking up, eating breakfast, brushing your teeth, then going to school. I never had to take a bus because we were close enough to the school, so I'd always have car rides or I just walked.
How about when you moved to going to Lincoln?
For Lincoln, obviously I had more responsibility. Sometimes I would do homework that I didn't want to do at night in the morning before I went to school. And again, I couldn't walk there, but someone always drove me. I can never take the bus.
And then when you were at Madison?
Madison, same situation.
Okay. And the high school?
High school, well, before I could drive, I either had my grandma take me to school sometimes, or I just walked when it was nice out.
And is your grandma the same person as your Nana?
No, she's my dad's mom.
Okay, your name?
Sharon Deets.
What was your attire for school? Did you have a uniform?
No.
Okay.
I didn't go to Newman.
Yeah, what was the typical attire or dress code for students?
It was very casual. For the dress code, you couldn't wear something like that was too short or revealing. It was more, they were more strict on females than they were males. You cannot wear a hat.
Not wear a hat. Mm-hmm.
Or have your hood up during school.
When you would walk to school, did you walk by yourself or did you walk with anyone else?
Sometimes, depending on like what grade my sister was in, we'd be in the same school sometimes. Like when I went to high school, my sister was entering middle school and John Adams was right by the high school, so we walked together. Mm-hmm. Then eventually I had to give her a ride once I got my driver's license. So.
Do you ever remember anything special along the way to your walk?
Okay, one time in freshman year, I learned about geocaching in my geometry class. And on the way back from school one time, I told my sister we should go geocaching, and we found one of the geocaches right in the parking lot of Hy-Vee, which was right by the high school. So I remember that.
Did you ever have any troubles getting to school?
No, not really. When I had my own car, parking sometimes is a pain in the butt because a lot of high schoolers don't know how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Describe each of your schools and the layouts of them, both interior and exterior. You can start with Jefferson.
Okay, so Jefferson is pretty wide, I would say. And the interior, I mean, when you're a little kid, it seems so big, but then every single time I go back there, I'm like, wow, this place is small. And each hallway was basically determined by the grade level. Like kindergarten had their own section, first and second grade were in their own hall, third and fourth graders in their own hall, and then fifth grade had their own hall. Lincoln, so the fifth graders were on the first floor, and the sixth graders were mostly on the top floor. And you were separated by family, and there were 3 families for each grade.
Which family were you in?
I was in the family in fifth grade with 5 other teachers. And then in 6th grade, I was in a family with, again, 5 other teachers, but I only had, I guess in 5th and 6th grade, we had two teachers that we would go to. But in 6th grade, my family was basically completely separated, and I only went to 2 classes, and we were completely isolated from everyone else.
Mm-hmm. And so Lincoln was the school that was made after all of the elementary schools decided to consolidate, correct?
Yes, it used to be the old middle school for Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm. And so how did that consolidation work?
Okay, so they used to go from each elementary school in Mason City used to go up to 5th grade, and then once they consolidated, it only goes up to 4th grade now, and 5th and 6th grade are now at Lincoln when 6th grade used to be at John Adams, part of the middle school.
And how many middle schools were there before?
2 when I was, there have been more, but yeah. 2 at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so then Madison, which grades was that for?
Madison was only for 7th graders.
And what did that look like?
It was a very old school that used to be an elementary school, and then they turned it into a preschool. And the locker I had was very small, so I had to bend down. And there was no air conditioning on the top floor, so if you had classes on the top floor during when it was really hot out, sometimes we'd have to go to the bottom floor classes, and yeah, you're basically separated if you have classes on top floor versus the bottom floor.
Mm-hmm. Where did 8th graders go?
8th graders, for me, there was construction going on at the time when I was in 7th grade, so 8th graders went to this whole mobile school in front of the high school stadium. And then in 8th grade, we eventually got back to John Adams, and now that's where both 7th and 8th graders go to school.
Okay. And then you said high school's connected to the middle school?
Yes.
Okay, and what did the high school look like?
The high school, during the time I went there, because a lot has changed since I graduated apparently. So each class had their own hallway. The freshmen and sophomores were upstairs, and the juniors and seniors were on the main floor.
Did these schools have basements, gyms, cafeterias?
Jefferson had no basement that I can recall, but the gym served as the cafeteria. And in Lincoln, the cafeteria was right at the entrance of the building. Right when you walk in, you'll be in the cafeteria, and the gym was right next to it. In Madison, there was a basement, and that's where the cafeteria was. It was also a tornado shelter too. Mm-hmm. And the gym was a very small gym, at the end of the school. In John Adams, the cafeteria wasn't wasn't really close to any of the classrooms. And the gym, it wasn't a basement, but it was like on the bottom floor of the middle school. It wasn't part of the main floor. And for high school, same thing. Gym was on the bottom floor, not the main floor. It wasn't a basement. However, there is an underground part that sometimes baseball players go for practice. But most of it's been dangerous since the flood of 2008.
So what technology did your school have access to?
So in elementary school, I mostly remember teachers using the overprojector, whatever it was called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And writing on those on a like a laminated worksheet. And obviously we had computers in the computer lab to work, but there weren't as many like options available besides like Internet Explorer and like Microsoft Word. Same thing for Lincoln. I think 8th grade was the first, in middle school was the first time we actually got to use individual like Chromebooks. It was either 7th or 8th grade. And then in high school, same thing. And obviously as years went on, we got more technology. Like some classes had smart boards. And now each student has access to their own Chromebook that they can bring home. That happened right after I graduated, so I didn't even get to experience it.
So was social media incorporated into the classroom or school?
Social media sites like Snapchat, they were banned on using the school's Wi-Fi. Don't remember if Facebook and Instagram were. I don't think they were. Mm-hmm. But obviously, teachers didn't want you to be on them.
Did your school have Twitter?
In high school, like clubs and sports teams would have their own Twitter, but it wasn't as used as it is now, I would say.
Were you allowed to bring in your own technology, like phones, computers, etc., or did your school have rules banning personal usage of technology?
You were not you couldn't bring your own laptop, if I can recall. Although during study hall, I think, your laptops were allowed during the study hall, but mostly not in other classes because we could use other computers. Phones were not allowed, but some teachers were very lenient, so they didn't really care that much. But some teachers would take away your phone and put it in the office until the day's over. Mm-hmm. I never got in trouble with my phone, so. If you were gonna use it, you gotta be sneaky with it.
Did many of your classmates have a phone, and when did you and your classmates begin to use and own your own personal mobile devices?
Okay, well, my parents had a rule that I could not get a phone until I was 12. So 6th grade, when I turned 12, I got my first phone that was a Verizon, like, little phone that could, like, only call and text. You couldn't even play any games on it. And then some of my friends got phones when they were in elementary school, which I think is kind of ridiculous, but...
Mm-hmm. Did you have to ever take any technology classes?
Yes. In 7th and 8th grade, it was required to take this computer class. I honestly don't remember what we did at this point. And in elementary school, actually, as part of the lab, I don't remember what was the class called. Like,
it's like typing.
Yeah, we like learned how to type, taking like typing tests and everything. Mm-hmm. as part of our reading class or something, literature. I don't even know. It was one of the special classes that we'd attend, I believe.
When you arrived at school, how did the school day begin?
Okay, so in elementary school, I'd walk into the main entrance and then go to my locker. And then I cannot remember. I think I'd just go to the homeroom or whatever before school started. Sometimes before school started, you could be outside on the equipment and playing in the field. And then at Lincoln, when you would arrive, like early before the bell rang, you would go to the gym and wait on the bleachers in there. Or sometimes when the gym was being used, you'd have to sit in the cafeteria. And sometimes when the gym wasn't open until later and you came really early, you'd have to be in the cafeteria. And then once the bell rang, you'd go to your homeroom first. And then Madison, same thing. You go to the gym if you arrive early. Oh, sometimes you could go to the lab. And at John Adams, same thing. You would go to the gym. It didn't really change into high school. Once you arrived early, you weren't really allowed to roam the hallways. So you'd have to stay in the main commons area, which is the huge part of the building at the entrance that kind of connects all the hallways.
Did your school offer breakfast?
Yes, but I never ate it.
How many students were in your graduating class?
There were less than 250 students.
How about in your school?
I mean, maybe about over 2,000. There weren't 3,000, I know that.
So how do you remember your classmates?
Well, there were some people that I never wanted to have a class with because they are very disruptive during class. And I don't know, some of the people, like when I took honors classes, obviously I want them in my class because they always contributed to class and knew what they were doing and they didn't waste time.
So how would your classmates remember you?
They'd probably remember me as sometimes as a more of a quiet individual, but in smaller classes I definitely came more alive. My personality shined brighter when I had when I was in a smaller classroom and with friends. If I had people that I knew and was close to, then I'd have no problem being myself. But if I was in a class of people that I didn't really know that well, I'd just basically be quiet the entire time.
So what were some of the classes that you took?
So in elementary school, basically all the basics was literature, reading, math, science in some grades, social studies and history in some grades. Then those four subjects were basically taught at Lincoln too. And then John Adams and Madison is when you were required to take these special classes, which they were considered special classes back in elementary school, like gym class. Gym was always required, but gym in elementary school was a special class that you'd alternate music, art, the library, the computer lab. What they did was they had special letter days, and depending on what letter day it was, that would determine which special class you'd rotate to. And at Lincoln, it was the same thing, art, music. And in 5th grade, choir was not optional. 5th grade, everyone was in it, but 6th grade is when choir became optional. Okay, I do remember now. Okay, so art was in one semester, and music was in the other semester. And then at Madison and John Adams, you had these 4 classes that you would rotate to quarterly. So you could have home ec, industrial tech, computers, and art. And those 4 were the same in John Adams, 8th grade, but you could take a different type of class with those. And in the high school, those would become electives, so you didn't always have to take them. But gym was always required.
So did you have any favorite or least favorite classes? I'm
a huge sucker for history, so basically all the history classes, especially the ones talking about like ancient history. My favorite one was when we learned about the Roman Empire. And that teacher kind of solidified my desire to become a history teacher once I came to UNI, even though that's changed now. And I did not like math classes. My parents challenged me to be 1 year ahead of everyone. And the one class, I guess Algebra 2 was the only math class that I did okay at. I mean, I never finished below until senior year with AP Calc. But geometry was my least favorite. I still do not understand that to today.
So how is the school day structured?
Okay, so in elementary school, I believe we had 3 recesses scattered throughout the day. And you'd have 2 different classes in the morning, and then you'd have lunchtime, then the 2 other classes in the afternoon. And whatever special class you had differed. Like, there was one time during the day you'd have a special class. I think it was usually in the morning. And that would differ each day depending on the letter day. At Lincoln, same thing. I had my first 2 classes with my homeroom teacher, and then after lunch, we'd switch to the other teacher who taught math and science, I think? Yes, it was science. And same thing for 6th grade. In Madison, we switched to then going by periods, and I believe there were 8 periods, including homeroom by the end of the day. Homeroom was the last period of the day. And you were either in homeroom, choir, or band. Choir and band alternated because some people were in both. So, and then same thing, went for 8th grade in John Adams. And during high school, I believe we went to 7 periods. And we had quick time at the beginning of the day, which then switched to Mohawk Pride, which was right after lunch, that only freshmen to juniors had to attend. Seniors didn't have to attend that. So,
what was quick time or Mohawk Pride?
Quick time was basically what homeroom was during every year before high school, where you could work on assignments and ask for a teacher's help and everything.
What kind of school supplies did you get every year?
Folders, journals, 3-ring binders for science and math. Obviously pencil box, and you would fill pencils with pencils, pens, sometimes colored pencils, scissors, tape maybe, pencil sharpeners.
Did you have exams or writing assignments?
In pretty much every single class starting in 5th grade. I mean, I know we had some in elementary school, but I can't remember exactly when that started.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned for some of your specials that you had music. Did you like music?
I didn't really care for the music class itself, but I was in choir. I enjoyed singing in a group. I was in a choir since 4th grade when they had Jefferson singers, and I stayed in a choir until senior year, finishing in concert choir.
Okay. So what kind of singing voice did you have?
I started off with a soprano voice because, before puberty, guys have higher voices. And then once I went through puberty during teenage years, I switched down to tenor. I could never sing as low as bass. And my entire high school career during choir, I was a tenor too.
So did you have to take lessons for choir?
You only had to take lessons when you were part of the choir in varsity choir and concert choir, and there were not that many. Unless you wanted to be an all-state, then of course you'd have to have a lot of lessons. But those were optional, of course. So.
Were you in band?
I was in band for 5th grade and 6th grade. I quit after 6th grade because I just didn't enjoy it. And yes, you had a lot of lessons scattered throughout the week, and you'd have to miss class, which was probably one of the main reasons why I didn't want to be in band anymore, because I always hated missing class.
What instrument did you play?
I played the sax. I played the clarinet. I think I would have stayed in band longer.
Did you have to do summer lessons at all?
The year before 5th grade, I remember taking summer lessons at the Music Man.
Going back to your elementary school music classes, did you ever use a radio, recorder, electric keyboard, or other instruments for music education?
In 3rd and 4th grade, maybe sometimes, I didn't have school in 5th grade there. We had a recorder unit, and we'd also have a piano unit, and sometimes we'd play some instruments using drums, but it was a small unit. But with the piano and the recorder, you actually learned how to play certain songs, and I think you were tested on it sometimes.
Did you use the Fullerton Music Education? Do you know, or?
I don't even know what that is.
That's okay. So did you put on any programs for your school?
Plays?
Yeah.
Okay, in elementary school, each grade would get to perform their own play, and I can actually remember what we did for each year.
Okay, what was each year?
Kindergarten, our play was about insects. 1st grade was about being fish under the water. I played a main role in that. 2nd grade was Christmas, and I believe it was colored animals versus black and white animals. In 3rd grade, it was also about Christmas, but this time it was cats versus dogs. 2nd and 3rd grade did it together. And in 3rd grade, the 3rd graders were the dogs and 2nd graders were the cats. And in 4th grade, which is my favorite, we did basically about the American Revolution and all of the history around settling America.
So, did your elementary school have a school song?
Yes.
Can you sing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Sing it with me.
Okay, sure.
Okay. When the Jefferson kids walk down the street, they look 100% from head to feet. They've got that smile, that style, that merry way. No matter where you'll go, you'll recognize them, and you'll see now there's some kids I'd like to know. They've got the good old Jefferson pep and go, and just to look at them is sure a treat. It's great to be a No, it's hard to be.
Yeah,
it's hard to be a Jefferson kid. That was elementary school.
Yes.
And then, of course, high school, we had our fight song. Mason City, go. Mason City, go, go. Mason City, go, go, go. Mason City, go, go, go. Enemy, look out below. Or enemies, look out below. Victor, here's our address. MCMCHS, Mason City, cheer, cheer, cheer. Mason City foe, you better get out of here. Mason City High School, hit hard, hit low. Mason City, go, go, go. MCHS, let's go. Mohawks, let's go.
Awesome. Okay.
We also had an alma mater that I do not remember.
You also mentioned that for another special that you had was PE. Did you like PE?
I did when I was younger. In high school, I thought it was a waste of time.
Okay. Did you have to take PE?
Yes. You had to have a certain amount of hours to graduate with PE, which I thought was stupid, but I understand why they did it, but I don't feel like you should have had to take it junior and senior year.
How frequently did you have it?
Okay, so in elementary school, it was part of the special days, I believe. In 5th and 6th grade, we alternated. Gym wasn't every day. I think we had A, B, C, D days in middle school, and you'd either have gym class on A and C days or B and D days. And then in high school, when I was a freshman, I was in choir, and being part of mixed choir means that we'd have gym every other day, because if you're not part of that, then you're supposed to have gym for only one semester, meaning that you'd have gym class every single day.
Did you ever have to wear any specific uniforms for gym?
Well, you had to basically be in athletic wear. Couldn't be wearing jeans or anything.
What games or activities did you play?
We played a lot more variety of activities when we were younger, but by the time I got in high school, all we were playing was mat ball, and I got so tired of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And protect the pins, like those two were always the ones that were being played.
Yeah. Was PE separated by gender at all?
It was when we did fitness testing.
For fitness testing, did you use the presidential fitness test, or was it called the fitness gram pacer?
What, like the pacer itself, or that was the type of?
Like,
I believe it was the presidential one.
Okay. When did you start having to do fitness testing?
Boy, I think 3rd grade is when it started. 2nd or 3rd grade.
Yeah. For that, did you have to run the mile?
You had to run the mile every year starting in 3rd grade.
Did your school offer any sports?
Well, obviously in elementary school and in Lincoln, we weren't like a middle school or high school yet, so there was no like specific team there, but in middle school and high school, yes, they did offer sports.
Did you participate in any sports?
Yes, during the fall, since 7th grade, I'd always do cross country. During winter, they had offered basketball. I didn't do basketball, but in high school, they also had swimming at that time, and I joined swimming my junior year. And during the spring, you'd either be in track and field or soccer. And in middle school, they had no soccer team, so I was just in track and field in 7th and 8th grade, which was not a fun experience. And for my first 2 years of high school, I did soccer during that time.
So did your school offer any foreign language classes?
Yes, the high school offered either Spanish or German, and I took Spanish all 4 years, and I'm very good at it.
So, did your school offer any art classes?
Yes, and unlike Spanish, I'm terrible at that.
Okay.
Art became optional once you reach high school, though. It was part of an elective class.
Okay. Did you ever need to purchase any additional supplies for art?
Probably. I can't remember anything specific, though.
Did your school offer any special education classes or gifted classes?
So special education for people that struggle with school?
Yeah.
Yes. And gifted classes, yes. There were some honors classes for reading and math.
Were you in either?
In 7th, from 7th to my sophomore year of high school, I was in honors English. Very well at that, and like I said before, my parents always put me 1 year ahead in math, so I was part of honors math too, and I stayed in that all the way until senior year. And then Spanish, we went to Spanish 1 through 4, and each year you could choose to do honors, which means you would have more vocabulary words to remember, and you'd have some presentations that no one else in the class did. And I did honors Spanish both my freshman and junior year, and then for senior year, instead of doing Spanish 4, I did advanced Spanish.
Did your school have a guidance counselor?
Yes. In elementary school, it was just one. At Lincoln, I think it was just one too. In middle school, one, I believe. And then in high school, there were 3. One did both freshmen and sophomores. One was with juniors and one was with seniors.
So was their job primarily focused on helping students apply for colleges, or did they also work as kind of an on-site there?
I believe every counselor before junior and senior year kind of was more of an on-site therapist, or just someone to go to when you need something to talk about that you don't know who else to talk to. But my senior year, I definitely went to my counselor a lot to talk about college, preparing for college.
Okay.
And junior year too.
Was mental health ever discussed in your classes?
It really wasn't, actually, which I feel like it should have been.
So you also mentioned as a part of your specials in middle school that you did have like a shop class and some other practical skills classes.
Home ec.
Yeah. So how did you feel about those classes?
I thought they were interesting at the time. However, if you asked me to do something from one of those classes, I probably wouldn't remember it. It did not carry over.
Mm-hmm. Did your school teach driver's ed, or was that from a private company?
The school did offer driver's ed, but I took it in a different town over the summer.
Okay. Did your school teach you cursive?
Elementary schools, second grade, I think, was the only time we actually learned cursive, and then after that year, they just abandoned it. So it's like, what was the point of learning that?
So what were your teachers like?
So the majority of my teachers were females, and all of the male teachers called me by my last name. So they never really wanted to use my first name.
What did teachers typically wear to school?
Guys wore suits, basically, and females wore not exactly dresses, but like nice clothes, formal clothes.
What was your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher was in 8th grade, my honors English teacher. He was very different, but he was very fun, and because of him, I'll always remember what symbolism is.
Okay. What was his name?
His name was Mr. Wiedenheft, and we called him the Wizard. He was also my homeroom teacher, so I literally saw him like 3 or 4 times a day. And I did very well in his class, too. It was a very fun class.
So as a student, what was expected of you?
To take notes, to not be disruptive during class, and to ask help when you need it.
Did you come prepared for lessons?
I did when I had all my, when I brought materials that I needed for school, and then like sometimes when they were like, make sure you read this, or like do homework on this so we can discuss it in class. Most of the time.
Okay. How did you get your books?
I believe most of the time during the first day of classes, the teacher would have the books in the classroom already, and we'd just be assigned to take one.
What were some of the rules of your classroom, and what would happen if you broke the rules? Like, what was the discipline if you did something bad?
Okay, so in elementary school, some teachers did a system where if you're disruptive during class or do something you're not supposed to, your name gets written on the board, and if it gets like a strike by it or something, then you can't go outside for recess. Then if it's like 2 strikes by your name, I think you got sent to the office. And then I guess at Lincoln and John Adams, you'd have a warning the first time you're disruptive. The second time you're asked to leave in the hall. And then if it's an ongoing occurrence, they just send you to the office. But then during high school, whenever you were tardy, you'd have to have a detention. There was no warning. So
what was lunch typically like?
So most of the time I had hot lunch, and we never really got to have a variety of options until high school. I don't really remember like the nature of lunch. I mean, I had lunch with my friends. We had to normally sit with our what class we were in. That didn't change until high school.
Did your school ever offer open campus lunch?
Only when you were a senior.
How did you pay for lunch?
My parents did.
Okay.
Using the lunch card, lunch ticket, or whatever it was called.
How did the lunch card work?
You'd have a certain amount of money on the lunch ticket, and there's some options where you could take extra food, but it'd be charged on that, and once you ran out, then you couldn't use that card unless it got paid off. But if you never took any extra options that would be charged, then normally it would cover you for the entire year.
So what was a popular food at lunch when you were a kid?
Before Michelle Obama, her whole school food thing came, a very popular choice was the spaghetti. We had garlic bread. The pizza used to be really good too. The chicken used to be better. A lot of foods used to be better before that. But then my first experience with mozzarella sticks was at elementary school. I thought they were chicken fingers at first, and now they're one of my favorite foods to eat. Oh, in high school, my favorite thing to eat was chicken fajitas. Mm-hmm. They made good chicken fajitas.
When you were a kid, what was recess like?
At recess, you were not allowed to play tag or anything on the equipment, even though people broke the rules all the time. I normally played with a group of friends. Sometimes I'd play kickball, or sometimes I'd join soccer with all the athletes in my class. And so the first and the last recess were about the same time, but the middle day recess was after lunch, and that was about a half hour, I think.
What equipment was on your playground?
We had swings, slides, monkey bars. Monkey bars were definitely a popular pick. There were sometimes huge lines for those. And of course, the pole, the fireman pole, that apparently you weren't allowed to use until your first grader or something.
Did your school provide toys to play with, like basketballs?
Yes. Okay, they were in a chest, and I think you had to wait in line to check them out by the basketball hoop, right? It was underneath the basketball hoop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so you could play, like, either use it to play kickball, have a soccer ball to play soccer with. You could play tetherball. A very popular game was Foursquare, using a kickball. And then, of course, bottle cap. That was always a fun one.
Mm-hmm. When the weather was bad, what did you do for recess?
When the weather was bad, we stayed inside, and normally we just played board games.
Were there any forbidden games or activities at the playground?
Well, you couldn't play tag on the playground. In 5th and 6th grade, we actually still had recess, but some of the games we played actually got banned by the principal. One was wall dodgeball, where you're all against the wall and one person's throwing the ball, and of course that one got banned because it's kind of a little violent. And another one was the ninja game, you know. I don't remember what it's called, but
yeah, it's ninja.
Yeah, that got banned too.
Did you have a nap time?
In kindergarten, we did.
Okay. Did you ever have to bring anything from home for nap time?
We had a towel that we brought at the beginning of the year, and we'd always use that to lay down on.
So how did the school day end?
I think you just have your last class of the day, and then you leave. At Lincoln, you ended with homeroom again, and you either had homeroom, choir, or band. Same thing for middle school. And then in high school, band was in the morning, so like band and choir students could do band and choir in the same day, and during high school it just depended on what your 7th period was.
Did you have any homework at night?
Yes.
Okay, how did technology change homework?
Well, I don't remember if we were ever, I guess taking notes during class. Like, some people like to just do the old-fashioned way, write them in your notebook, and some people like me like to type it on the computer, so it helped me take notes better, I would say.
Yeah. Did your teachers ever ban Wikipedia or other websites?
They never banned Wikipedia, but they said don't use it as a credible source.
Mm-hmm. Did cheating or plagiarism rules change as your technology did?
I would say yes, but I believe that's pretty much, that applies for everyone, so it wasn't just my school.
Were some of your teachers resistant to the usage of technology in the classroom?
Yes, but very few. Most of them are accepting of it.
What extracurricular activities did you participate in?
I was in choir, like I said. I was also in the National Honor Society once I reached junior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
In 7th grade, I was part of the student government. That I don't even remember what we did. In 5th and 6th grade, I think it was 6th grade, is when each class would get to nominate 2 students to be part of, basically was the student government, but we didn't have a student government at Lincoln. I don't remember what it was called, but like there was this one like shop that was by the cafeteria that they'd work in. They'd also go on the announcements to like tell you what, like, oh, what are the announcements for today and like what's for lunch and everything. I was also, my junior year, I was selected to be part of this program called YIELD, which stands for Youth Investing, Energy, and Leadership Development. And how that worked was the Chamber of Commerce, they selected juniors that they felt were really leaders in their respective classes from both Mason City, the Alti, and Newman. And I believe it was about like 20 people per class.
What is Alti?
The Alti was the place where students that were not meeting ends would go to. Like if they failed a lot of classes during high school, they would go there, or their attendance wasn't that well at the high school, they'd go to the Alti. I'm trying to think of other extracurriculars because I know I was involved in more. Okay. For sports, I was in cross country, soccer, track, swimming.
Did you have to take an ITBS, Iowa Assessments, or Iowa Basic Skills?
Yes, we had to every year starting in 3rd grade, and we finished junior year of high school.
Which one did you take? Was it ITBS, Iowa Assessments, Iowa Basic Skills?
It started as the ITBS, and then it changed to the Iowa Assessments.
Okay. Were your scores consistent?
I'd say they were consistent, but they got better over time. Like, the skills that I was better at, like reading, and like were generally higher. My math score was probably the lowest, but that would improve over time. So,
what was your feelings about these tests?
Well, I don't like standardized tests, so I felt really stressed by them because I don't like being timed. I don't feel like it measures intelligence as well as people like to say they do.
Did you ever take the SAT or ACT?
I took the ACT.
Did you ever take any prep classes or pre-test?
I never took any prep classes. However, I did have the practice book. And yes, I did take the pre-SAT during my sophomore or junior year during like school.
Okay, was it difficult?
The ACT?
Yeah.
Of course it was. The math I've never been good at, and I don't think I ever finished the time period during the math. Like I could never even finish all the questions during the math section.
Do you remember your score?
My total score was 23. That would have been higher if I didn't do awful at the math section.
Did that impact your access to colleges or financial aid?
If I got a higher score, like in the 30s, I would have got a better scholarship. But it didn't impact me getting into UNI.
Okay.
Because I believe the requirement was 19. So
yeah,
23 is well above.
So did you ever take any tests to determine your aptitude or future job opportunities?
Yes. I don't even remember what it was called, but we did it sophomore year, I think.
What job?
And you'd be awarded like certain certificates, like gold medals and stuff. Not gold medals, but like medals.
Mm-hmm. What job were you given as the one that you should pursue?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, it wasn't significant if I don't remember it.
Yeah. So did your school have any fire or tornado drills, code reds, or active shooter drills?
We had both a fire drill and a tornado drills.
Okay.
And then my sister tells me that we started having an active shooting drill my senior year of high school. I don't remember that, but apparently they do now.
Okay. What were those like?
So fire drills, the teacher would explain what to do, like what exits to go out of, and then they'd take attendance. Tornado drill, we'd all go to a certain location, they'd take attendance, and yeah, that's basically how it went.
Okay. Did you ever have any incidents regarding safety at your school?
Yes. First grade, our school got put on a lockdown because there was a robbery, but in the U.S., I think it was the U.S. Bank that was only a block away from our school. And the robber was armed and everything. So that was pretty scary, especially for 7-year-olds. There were some times where some students just had meltdowns and they were kind of dangerous to be around. So we'd be put on code red sometimes.
Okay, so what happened when you were in code red?
This only happened once. Actually, no, I think it happened twice. One time it was in 5th grade where we just had to go to a corner of our room and hide. Because code red is basically like there's an intruder in the building, which is what active shooting usually is. And then code blues is when like it was a medical problem. Someone like passed out in the hall or had a seizure in the hallway, and we couldn't leave the classroom until code blue was all clear. I don't remember what code yellow was for. I think that was just caution.
Okay.
Like don't leave the classrooms unless you have to.
So how did the teachers react to the code red?
They did what they were trained to do.
How did you and your friends react?
A lot of people, some of them actually started crying because they were terrified. I'm like, I knew it wasn't going to be like anything serious, but
Mm-hmm. Did your
it was scary. I will say that.
How did your parents or family react?
Well, they didn't know until I told them, and of course they were super curious about it, but I said everything was okay, so like, okay.
What was the consolidation from going from Jefferson to Lincoln like?
I thought it was kind of nice because all of us were coming to a new school, so like everyone was starting over at like square one. So unlike being a new student when everyone at a school that a lot of people know each other already, everyone was in that situation. So I thought that was nice. Also, we were the first 5th grade class at Lincoln. So we were kind of the guinea pigs to see how that went. However, I was kind of sad that we didn't get to experience 5th grade at Jefferson because 5th graders got to do a lot of things that none of the other grades got to do. They were basically the seniors of elementary school.
Do you have a particular memory from consolidating?
I have a lot of memories in 5th and 6th grade, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, like anything that really stood out to you?
Well, a lot of people wanted to be my friend, so that was nice. Like a lot of like the popular people like would always choose me to be their partners. Obviously, I mean, I was very smart in school too, so they could have just been like that. But a lot of them genuinely liked me, and a lot of them would choose me to be their partner in projects that I wasn't even partners with my like friends or anything, but it was a fun time. A lot of people, some people didn't like 5th and 6th grade, but I had a blast during 5th and 6th grade. Also during 5th and 6th grade, for some reason, we had the same people basically in our 6th grade class that we did in our 5th grade. So friendships developed over those 2 years.
Did you have a parent on the school board?
No.
Okay. How did your student life change during and then after consolidation?
I don't think anything really changed that much. We basically had the same, like we'd have 2 classes in the morning, 2 classes in the afternoon.
Did the class size change?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously. You'd go from everyone you had in your elementary school in your class, and then since there were 4 elementary schools, all of those 4th graders that were coming into 5th graders became what your new class was.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thought it was kind of nice to meet then instead of meeting in 6th grade, because those are the people that you're going to spend your entire last 5 to 6 years of secondary school with. So,
did the teachers change in any way?
a lot of the teachers that taught 4th and 5th grade at Jefferson came over to Lincoln. And I'm pretty sure that was the same for other teachers in Harding, Hoover, and Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm. So how did the students from each different school interact with each other? Was there a lot of tensions between them?
Okay, so how it went was everyone viewed Jefferson as the rich kids' school, which is what I went to. Harding was seen as where the bad kids went. Hoover was just in between. It was pretty isolated from all the other schools, and Roosevelt had a lot of neighborhoods nearby that were not safe. So Roosevelt, I don't want to say they were the dumb kids, but they were known as the dumber kids. And that definitely impacted some interactions, I will say that.
Okay. Do you think those interactions got better since there was a consolidation?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'd have those judgments at the beginning, but once you got to know them, then that lifted.
Okay. So what was the typical year-round school schedule like?
Okay, so I don't even remember how we did this in elementary school, so I'm going to start at Lincoln. At Lincoln, we had I think we went by trimesters. I think we had 3, okay, so both Lincoln and the middle school, I think went by middle school is when we started doing semesters. Lincoln and everything else was a trimester, and then starting in middle school and high school, then we did grades by semesters, and there were 4 quarters in the semesters.
How did your school do breaks?
For breaks, we had a break for Thanksgiving break, winter break, and spring break.
When did the school year start?
School year usually started at the end of August or the beginning of September.
And when did it end?
It ended either at the beginning of June or end of May.
Okay. What did you typically do during summer break?
During summer, that changed over time. When I was younger, I had sometimes babysitters would come watch me and my siblings. And I also had camps, Bible camps over the summer I'd attend, and some sports camps like basketball. My family went on vacation a lot during the summer. And then when I was older, starting in high school, I got a job, so I'd have a lot of hours working at my job, hanging out with friends. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Would you say that would be pretty typical for your community?
Yeah, I'd say the same, yeah.
Okay. Did your school offer summer school?
You know what, I don't even think there was summer school. No, there was no summer school.
Did your school ever offer any class parties?
Starting in Lincoln, we had this thing called PBS celebrations. We had 4 of them for both 5th and 6th grade each year. And for one of them, we'd sign up for an outdoor activity. One of them, an indoor activity. Never mind. At Lincoln, there were 3 of them because we went by trimesters, not quarters. And then in middle school, we had 4 of them for each quarter. It was end of the quarter celebration. High school, we never had any.
Okay. When you were in high school, did your school offer dances such as prom or homecoming?
They offered both homecoming and prom, yes.
Okay.
No Sadie Hawkins.
Okay. What was the dress code for prom and homecoming?
I don't know. It basically, you can't wear something that's too revealing like the normal dress code. And, you want to look nice, so. But you're not going to be, thrown out if you're not, looking nice or anything, so.
Yeah. What were the average costs to go?
Ooh. Okay, I think a homecoming ticket was $10 to $15. Prom ticket was about $20, and obviously it depends on where you went for like your meal beforehand and what you did afterwards. So
were there ever any special events at your school that involved the larger community?
we did have some like guest speakers that other people could come in.
Okay.
I don't remember like what specific guest speakers, but I mean, whenever we did our pep assemblies and assemblies in the gym, like anyone in the community could attend.
Did your school ever take part in community service events or any other public events?
Okay, so it wasn't any community service events, but a lot of times during like Earth Day, we'd go outside during a class, and pick up like litter. And then I don't remember when it started, but for homecoming, the day of the game, that morning, you participate in some type of community service event. I was part of my cross-country team. We had our own, and what we did, I only did it my senior year, is we picked up cigarette butts in Central Park of Mason City.
Do you remember any major local, national, or world events that occurred during your school years?
Yes.
Such as?
There were 3 elections, presidential elections, the 2008, 2012, 2016.
Yeah.
And, the day that we caught and killed Osama bin Laden was a huge day. I'm sure there were more, but nothing, I don't think anything ever international. Yeah. Oh, whenever government would shut down, we'd always talk about that. That would kind of affect, like, some classes.
What did you do after you finished school?
Okay, so elementary school, usually someone in my family would pick me up, or I'd have to go to daycare in the afternoon. Was it? Yeah, it was called daycare. At Lincoln, I'd always be picked up. I didn't have to go anywhere. Same thing for Madison. Although in Madison, at the end of the day, since all of the sports that were held were at the middle school, we'd have to ride a bus after the school ended if you were in any sport. So every day for cross country, we'd always get on a bus to leave for Madison to go to John Adams. Same thing for track. And then high school, at the end of the day, that's when sports would always start. I mean, sometimes you would have practices in the morning if the coach moved it to the morning, but most of the time, all of the extracurriculars and sports were held after school.
Okay, what did you do when you graduated?
After I graduated, I went to UNI, and I'm still here as a junior right now, and yeah.
So what are you doing at UNI?
Right now, I am majoring in history, or not history, I was majoring in history. I'm majoring in psychology, and then I'm going to grad school after I'm done here to go into the counseling field. Not sure where or what job I want in the counseling field, but I do know that I want to be a counselor of some kind.
What are some important takeaways that you want people to remember from your school experience?
Don't wait to do something. Like, I'd always say that, I'll do that next year, when I didn't have like the guts. Like, a lot of times my parents wanted me to sit in the student section during like football games and everything. Like, I'll do that next year. If you keep putting stuff off, eventually you're never going to be ready for it, and after that you don't get to repeat it. So make the most of it while you can, especially in high school. Those 4 years will go fast, and high school seems like a stressful time, but it's nothing compared to anything afterwards.
Okay.
I wish I knew that. I mean, I did know that, but I never really took that seriously until senior year, when I was wishing senior year away, because I'm just done.
What was your best and worst day of school?
I don't even know what my best day was. My worst day of school was whenever I got in trouble. I hated getting in trouble. It just affected my mood the entire day. Best day, I honestly think one of my best days was like one of the last days of school, because I got like A's on like all my finals and everything, so that was great. I think the end of my sophomore year, that was a really fun day. Yeah, the end of my sophomore year. So in my honors English class, we had to make a whole biography of ourselves, and I spent like over 10 hours the day before finishing it, and it was nice. And then I had to like present it to my teacher, Mrs. Stanton, who is my favorite teacher after Mr. Wiedenheft. And then I took finals for other classes that I had that day. I don't remember. But then during choir, we had like a karaoke competition, so that was fun. And then afterwards, I'm like, I'm officially an upperclassman.
Mm-hmm. So, what comparisons or contrasts can you think of from your experiences in school to today's education system?
Oh, technology. Technology has definitely played an impact. I mean, a lot of it was like just reading textbooks and everything, and now some teachers just tell you to read like articles online instead of reading through a textbook. Some teachers don't even have to use a textbook, and those are my teachers that I like the most because they basically make their own class, and you can tell they know a lot about it because they have a lot of passion for it.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't know anything else. I've spilled a lot.
Oh, okay,
today.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate having this interview with you today.